has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rains do fall, solid from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sung in completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, evenings of play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
Good. Thank you for joining us here in person, and thank you for joining us remotely by Zoom, where we will continue live streaming and posting these services on our YouTube channel for our virtual attendees. I'm Grace Preuss, a member of the Worship Committee, and I will be your worship associate today. Other members of the Worship Committee who make this service possible include Alec Peck, our music coordinator, who is filling in today for Adam Wedeking, who monitors our visual and online connections and will also be reading the sermon today, as well as Kate Lewicki, who is in charge of our sound system. And that is who brings you this service. We welcome you to join us this morning with an open mind and an open heart, and with muted electronic devices, please. We invite you to leave your worries and defenses at the door and trust that what happens in worship is inspiring and powerful. Together, we affirm that this day and our being together can make each of us braver, more compassionate, and wiser as we begin a new day and a new week. Before we move into the service, there are a few announcements we'd like to share. We will mention several websites, email addresses, and phone numbers. At the end of the service, we will leave up a slide with all of this information, and it is also available on our website. The monthly UUCR newsletter comes out the first of every other month by email and per request by postal mail. If you have something newsworthy or that you would like to contribute, email uuchurchofriverside.calendar@gmail.com or call the church office at 951-986-6515. If you would like to be added to our mailing list, please contact the church office. Women's Federation. Women's Federation will meet on the second Saturday of the month. The next meeting will be at Kate Lewicki's home on September 14th at 1 p.m. Church Council meeting. Church Council will meet on the second Friday of the month in the annex. The next meeting will be at 4 p.m. on September 13th. Community Barbecue. We will be hosting a community barbecue here at the church at the beginning of October. This will coincide with the Doors Open Riverside event at the Mission Inn on Saturday, October 5th. So you can join us here at the church for some food and fellowship. UUCR will be hosting this free community outreach event, and all are welcome. However, we will be collecting donations from the congregation to help pay for food and related expenses as the date approaches. Thank you for your support. Now we will invite Social and Environmental Justice Committee Chair Adam Wedeking to make a special announcement. Adam?
The Social and Environmental Justice Committee will be hosting a special program created by the UUA called the UU Climate Revival. It's a very exciting climate justice revival sweeping the UU world this month, and we're going to be part of it. On September 28th and 29th, UU congregations will host climate justice revivals that will collectively imagine a spirit-filled and liberatory future. Through conversations, worship, and advocacy, congregations will work together to realize climate justice and collective liberation in our communities. Saturday, we'll engage in transformative discussions and activities. Sunday, our worship will focus on climate justice. Following the worship, we'll engage in an advocacy hour. We will learn how to sort of advocate for these ourselves, along with other congregations around the country. So please join us for this weekend of conversations, worship, and advocacy for climate justice. More details will be coming soon. There'll be more announcements and emails. Watch your email for more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. This concludes today's announcements. Welcome to all our visitors today, and welcome back to all of our old friends. We would love to meet you during coffee hour after the service. If you're comfortable doing so, please give us a wave so that we can recognize you later. And for those on Zoom, you can use a Zoom wave gesture or just wave at the camera. Anyone new here today? Welcome. Okay. We'd love to chat with you out in the parish hall, where you can also find our visitors book. Please leave your name before you leave so that we know you are here, and leave your contact information if you'd like updates on church events. There will also be a short discussion after the service so that you could share your reflections on the service with us. For those online, the best way to get added to the mailing list is to email the church office at admin@uuchurchofriverside.org. And now I invite you to sit back and take a slow, deep breath as we move into the worship hour. You are welcome to read with me the mission statement of our church. Our mission is to foster a diverse religious community that celebrates life, affirms the individual, encourages spiritual growth and open thought, and works to advance social justice and environmental sustainability. Today's topic is a pre-written sermon written by Reverend Bruce Bode. Reverend Bode served as minister of Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Port Townsend, Washington for 14 years, from 2004 to 2018. A Washington native, Reverend Bode has spent 40 years of his life in the ministry. After graduating from Calvin Theological Seminary in Grand Rapids, Michigan, he served liberal congregations in Michigan, Oklahoma, and Texas before returning to Port Townsend. He is married to his wife, Flossie, and is passionate about poetry and sports, and enjoys traveling. Living with contradictions. We are never one thing only for the whole of our lives. In fact, we are never one thing at any given time. More than one spirit can live in us at once, and we are regularly in constant flux. Human life is often non-binary, more complex than either or true or false. Reverend Bruce Bode proposes that one way we can deal with these seeming contradictions is to apply the scientific principle of complementarity. We have two lightings of sacred flames. The first is a remembrance candle for the indigenous peoples who continue to cry out for justice and self-determination. We remember that underneath us is the unceded land of several indigenous peoples, the Cahuilla, the Luiseño, and the Cupeño. We light this sacred flame in their remembrance and in recognition of their struggle for freedom and dignity. Our second sacred flame is our own chalice, the symbol of our faith. We are blessed with this space and opportunity to strive to live out our common principles, to bring justice, equity, and compassion into our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to be part of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Let these thoughts carry us forth as we journey and worship together. Today's chalice lighting words are "The Light Within Us" by Brian C. Lee. We light our chalice as a symbol of the light within us and the life that flows through the world around us. It is our beacon as we search for truth. It is the warmth in our hearts for love. And it is the energy that propels us to action. May we be kindled by our time together. Thank you, Bill. Our hymn now is number 1008, "When Our Heart is in a Holy Place," from the Teal hymnal. Feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you, and once again, stand in body or spirit and join us in singing number 1008, "When Our Heart is in a Holy Place."
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every calling, every creed and call, that we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our stories from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the guarded heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
This portion of our service is to support our beloved historical church. This can be accomplished in several ways. In addition to the weekly collection, you may send your checks to the church address, which is shown here. You may also contribute by PayPal using the QR code, which is shown here, as well as on the church website and in the newsletter. Stater Brothers Market gives our church a rebate on Stater grocery cards, which we will have in church each Sunday. Amazon gift cards are also available. You get the full value, and the church also receives a percentage for free. Please see Dinah Rowe or Robert Brown in the church office if you are interested in purchasing the gift cards. Please donate as the Spirit moves you by whatever method works best for you. Thank you for your generosity. To those who give of their time and their talent, Thank you for your generous care and attention. And to all of you who have joined us here today, thank you for the gift of your presence. Will our ushers now please come forward to receive the collection? Thank you. Our next hymn is number 1010, We Give Thanks, from the Teal Hymnal. Feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you, and stand, embody your spirit, and join us in singing number 1010, We Give Thanks.
Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, forever clear, vessels far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
Our meditation today is The Richness of Our Differences by Julianne Lepp. We seek our place in the world and the answers to our heart's deep questions. As we seek, may our hearts be open to unexpected answers. May we be reminded that all beings are whole, sacred, and worthy. Let our hearts be welcoming of multiple truths, not holding hard or fast to closed-mindedness or judgmental thinking. What can we learn from each other in the richness of our differences? May the heart of compassion help us recognize the sacred in each other and bridge differences in these challenging times. May each of us be held in relationship, accountability, and the power of beloved community. Blessed be. Now let us pause for a moment of silence and reflection. Now I would like to introduce Adam Whittaking, reading the sermon, Living with Contradictions by Reverend Bruce Bode. Please note that this is a pre-written sermon from the UUA website and does not necessarily reflect the views of the reader. Adam?
Yeah, again, this is, I did not write this, just reading a pre-written sermon. So I can't tell you if I totally agree with it because to be totally honest, I haven't finished reading it yet. So we'll figure it out together. Living with Contradictions. About 20 years ago, I read a book that I've never discussed with anyone, but which has stayed with me and intrigued me all this time, titled Religions of America and edited by Leo Roston. It is an attempt to describe as clearly and as concisely as possible the variety of religious faiths in America. One chapter, written by a scientist, mathematician, and educator, Dr. Warren Weaver, is titled The Religion of a Scientist. Dr. Weaver's approach to religion was influenced by a principle from science called the principle of complementarity. This was a principle developed by physicist Niels Bohr to try to describe the nature of the elementary units of light, electrons, and photons. Under some experimental conditions, these units behaved as though they were particles, but under other experimental conditions, they behaved as though they were waves. Well, which was correct? Were they particles or were they waves? To the conventional physicist, they could not be both. They had to be one or the other. But Niels Bohr said they were both. He said that the observer and the circumstances of the observer make a difference. And so you need a principle of complementarity to understand the nature of light. He said that under some observational circumstances, the units of light must be considered particles, and under other circumstances, they must be considered waves. By accepting the two contradictory descriptions and viewpoints, you have a more complete picture of light than you do by either one alone. In other words, he said the two viewpoints both contradict and complement each other. Both sets of information, even though they contradict each other, must be accepted as equally valid. One must learn to look at them as complementing each other, even though at first it may pain the mind to do so. We have to learn to live with the contradiction. This is the principle of complementarity, the principle of complementary perspectives. Dr. Weaver said applying this principle of complementarity to religion both sustained and liberated him. He said that in religion, too, if I ask a question from one point of view, I will have one answer. But sometimes if I ask the same question from another and quite different point of view, I may very well have a second answer. The second answer may be inconsistent with the first, but it can be viewed as complementing the first, even though it is contradictory. And the two answers together will provide a richer, truer picture than either separately. So, for example, when Dr. Weaver asks himself about the nature of God from two different points of view, he receives two different answers. When he asks the question within an impersonal intellectual framework, he finds it satisfying to say that God represents the impersonal law, order, and design of things which run on their own, a kind of deistic position. On the other hand, when he is frightened or concerned about the safety of his loved ones or wrestling with personal problems or emotionally moved by a well-remembered hymn, then his view of God is paradoxically different. God is no longer impersonal design and law, but God is personal, the ever-dependable friend, the loving and protecting parent. Dr. Weaver says these two concepts seem inconsistent and contradictory, but they arise, he says, under mutually exclusive circumstances and can be viewed as complementary. We don't have to choose one to the exclusion of the other, and that provides a richer, more complete, and more deeply satisfying approach to life. As I said, this idea of complementary perspectives has stayed with me. This idea of simply letting seemingly opposite and contradictory positions dangle in my mind and of not feeling compelled to reconcile them to one consistent system or decide for one over the other, but instead trying to hold the value of each. Let me speak about three ways in which I find this idea of complementary perspectives helpful. Truth and consistency. First, the principle of complementary perspectives recognizes the difference between truth and consistency. Truth is not necessarily consistent, and to be consistent is not necessarily to discern truth. G.K. Chesterton said that sanity consists in not worrying over much about consistency, that ordinary persons tend to stay sane because they care more for truth than they do for consistency. Ordinary persons, if they see two truths that seem to contradict each other, take the truths and the contradiction with them, rather than throw out one of the truths. Their sight is stereoscopic, binocular. They see two different pictures at once and are healthier and larger for it. On the other hand, Chesterton pointed out that the extreme inconsistency can be found among those suffering from certain mental illnesses. He said that often one of the characteristics of the disturbed mind is the extreme consistency and tremendous ability to connect one thing with another in an elaborate maze which is impossible to follow. You may feel that there's an error in their thinking, but try to find it, for giving the starting point, everything is connected and consistent. The problem, therefore, is not that the logic is faulty, but that the premise is narrow. The problem is that the circle is small. Too much reality has been left out. I find the same to be true of very consistent religious and philosophical systems. One may feel that there is some error in a given system, and that it doesn't feel at all right. It seems way off. But one may be hard-pressed to pinpoint the error, because again, the problem is not one of consistency. The problem is one of size. The system is too small. Actually, I believe one has the greatest feeling of error within the most consistent systems, because the systems have reduced themselves in size in order to achieve consistency. So in a way, the problem is really that the systems are too consistent. That is, they have chosen consistency over reality. They have chosen to be airtight and thus suffer from a lack of air. And when we find ourselves suffocating, struggling for air, or becoming defensive and rigid, or even a little paranoid, perhaps it's because in our mental outlook, we are trying to be too consistent. Perhaps our system needs to breathe a little, and needs a little more air, and needs a little less concern about consistency, and a little more concern about reality. The map is not the territory, as the saying goes, and life is larger than any system that attempts to make sense of it. It is larger than our notion of consistency. It is larger than the intellect, which sometimes seems as if it would like to reduce reality to a sphere the size of the human head. The role of the intellect. This leads me to a second comment, one that has to do with the role of the intellect in our life. It is simply this, that the intellect is to be a servant, not a master. That is not to say the intellect is unimportant, or that we are free to be sloppy in our thinking. The intellect is terribly important. It is our great gift, our distinguishing attribute. We wouldn't know what human life would be without this instrument. We must strive to use it well. But we need to recognize its function, its role, its value, its utility as a tool or instrument to help us find our way through life. And I believe that ideas and concepts are also tools, and like tools, they need to be sharpened when they have become dull or replaced when they have been worn out. Just think how many ideas and concepts and beliefs you have worn out over your lifetime. Think how many beliefs you have believed, how many opinions you have held, ideas that once served you well, beliefs that were important to you, how they change, how they shift, how they wear out, how they lose their importance. Take one's childhood idea and image of God, for example. Children easily pick up and are attracted to an image of God as an all-knowing and all-powerful and all-loving parent. They love to speak and pray to God. They love to pour out their hearts to God. They know that God is an advocate for them. It's an idea and an image that works for them. But later, as they grow older, they may need a new concept and image of God to keep pace with the new needs and new experiences and new understandings and new knowledge. It may be a concept that in certain ways contradicts and is inconsistent with the former image and idea, but I think it can be viewed as complementary. It is not necessary to call the former idea false or to belittle it from a present superior position. It was true to that age and to those experiences and to those needs and those understandings. There was something true about it. As parents, we are right not to rob our children of their childhood image of God, or for that matter, to look disrespectfully on our own childhood image and idea of God. On the other hand, we may need to be able to move on to new ideas and beliefs and images when that becomes necessary. We ought not let our ego and our identity get too attached to what we have always believed. That is how we lose our youthfulness of spirit. When we try to hold on when a concept isn't working for us anymore, we diminish, flatten, and shrink ourselves. We become stuck. This is the refusal of the call of life. So ideas, concepts, and beliefs are tools for us. We need a whole lot of them to make it through a lifetime. Who knows what beliefs we may yet to come find helpful. As we build and build, ideas complement ideas. Thoughts build upon thought. Sometimes we need to remodel. Sometimes we need to retool. And there's no need to be embarrassed by our past or beat up on ourselves for what we may now regard as worn out or childish ideas. The present complements the past. The truth of the opposite. The third thing the complementary approach can do is to open us to the value of what is rejected by one idea. The intellect tends to work by setting one thing against another, perhaps necessarily so. It says yes to one proposition and no to another. It conquers by dividing. Do we have free will or are we determined? Are we products of nature or products of nurture? Is the universe purposeful or purposeless? In pursuing one of these pairs, the truth of the other side tends to get rejected. But what about that which is rejected? We have little sayings which try to correct this one-sidedness. One of my favorites is, for every truth there is an opposite, which is also true. The complementary approach tries to keep us open to looking for truth in what the intellect tosses aside in pursuing one path. It's a both and approach. So the universe can be both purposeful and purposeless at the same time. It depends on our context. We don't have to decide for just one over the other. Find the truth in each one, even though we can't fit them together in a consistent way. We can follow the arguments of each position. So just keep both of them going at the same time. Keep the vision stereoscopic. There's more reality in it. One of my favorite plays and movies is Fiddler on the Roof. And one of my favorite scenes from it is one in which Tave, the main character, after listening to one person's argument on a subject, says, he's right. And the second person, directly contradicting the first, says, but that's nonsense. It's like this. And he says again, yes, that's right. The third person interjects saying, he's right and he's right too. They can't both be right. To which he sheepishly replies, you are also right. This complementary approach, the both and approach, this is the complementary approach, the both and approach. If something comes along that makes sense and has some truth in it for you, don't get too concerned, even if it seems to contradict previous beliefs and positions. Don't reject it just because it doesn't fit well into the already existing compartments of your mind. Simply add a new compartment, or add a new belief, or add a new perspective. Fit the beliefs to the evidence rather than discarding the evidence simply because it doesn't fit the beliefs. Ralph Waldo Emerson would approve. A foolish consistency is a hobgoblin of little minds. For example, is there life after death? Try out the approach from a complementary perspective. Try out the approach of complementary perspectives. On the one hand, surely we are part of nature and cycle and recycle in a way nature does. From dust thou art to dust thou shalt return. We die and nothing remains, only residue of memory for a time. On the other hand, can anything once conscious just disappear? Our departed loved ones sometimes return in our dreams and visions with more reality than they ever have in the flesh. The psyche has a reality of its own. It is not bound by the dimensions of space and time. There is a vertical dimension, not just a horizontal dimension. This is another perspective, and they can both play in us and other perspectives as well. So, conclusion. So the complementary principle holds that we do not, complementarity principle holds that we do not have to choose just one belief out of many on a given subject. Instead, we can take different perspectives and stay with the truth and the feeling that appeals to us in each one of them without worrying, first of all, about how or whether they fit into other ideas. With respect to an image of God, for example, we can be theist, deist, polytheist, pantheist, atheist, and agnostic all at once. There can be something in each perspective that speaks to us and carries a truth for us. At one time, we may learn more in one direction. We may lean more in one direction, and another time in another. We are never one thing only for our whole lives. We are never one thing at any given time. More than one spirit can live in us at once. Our intellects and ideas have a hard time keeping up with the immensity of reality. So it seems to me that a principle of complementary perspectives and a willingness to live within paradox and even flat-out contradiction can help to keep us alive and open to this beautiful, terrible world in which we live. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Our closing hymn is number 131, Love Will Guide Us, from the Gray Hymnal. Feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you, and stand, embody your spirit, and join us in singing 131, Love Will Guide Us.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way. On the road from pain to giving, love will guide us through the night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way. On the road from pain to giving, love will guide us through the night.
Changes abound around us, within us, between us, in our communities, our neighborhoods, and our beloved faith communities. Changes abound. May we each find the balance point we need as we move through our ever-changing world. The balance between the old and the new, between the known and the unknown, between the familiar and the perhaps bold and risky possibilities that may be there waiting. Namaste, amen, and blessed be. Thank you, Adam, for sharing your valuable time and reading the sermon for us this morning. It is sincerely appreciated, and we look forward to seeing you again. Now we will have 10 to 15 minutes for discussion following the service for those who wish to share your thoughts and observations on today's topic. Please be aware this will be included on the video that is posted. For the rest of you, you are now welcome to adjourn into the parish hall. Would anyone like to come up and share their thoughts on what they heard today?
Announcement. As you are leaving, you will see my friend Reba is out there selling desserts. She is raising money for her family in Gaza, her niece and her kids. So if you can help her out, $5 for some really good desserts. So check it out.
Yeah. Okay, Tinka.
Hi, I'm Tinka, a longtime member of this church. And I had read it whenever it came across. As a member of the worship committee, I was reading all of them to decide which one to put in any given week. And it really resonated with me. I guess I would call myself a UU Christian. And I know that there are other UUs that feel that there's a dissonance in that, that like, how can you be a UU and call yourself a Christian? Definitely mainstream Christians see that, how can you be a Unitarian and call yourself a Christian? So, so I have had to live in that space and find a comfortable space in there. And it is true, different, and I loved the part that he talked about how, I guess two pieces. One has to do with sort of like the toolbox and your tools. Like you don't use one tool to fix everything. It won't fit in everything. And so I have a multitude of tools in my toolbox. And I love the part where he talked about how, I can't remember how he wrote it or phrased it exactly, but it's the concept that if you can't reconcile these two ideas, it's because your thinking is too small, too narrow. The space doesn't open up. And that's the thing I love about Universalist Unitarian in this church, is that we broaden that circle, we broaden that space, and welcome, all these other ways of thinking or ways of seeing and bring it in. And I really like the way he talked about how you want to make if you want to make your position, your truth so airtight, then what's going to happen is you're going to suffocate because no air can get in. It is so airtight. And so I love that. And I have changed my position religiously and in many ways, socially and everything else, in terms of what I believe in, what I'm comfortable with, how I'm able to greet people and meet them where they are and not insist that they conform to mine. So I really liked this sermon and felt a great deal of connection to it.
Thank you, Tinka. I think that's called growth. Bill?
Part of what I got from this sermon was an echo of all that time spent with the whole thesis, antithesis, synthesis. An idea that says, if you have a thing, you're going to have a counter thing. And you're going to have various degrees that are going to show up anyway. A stork will occasionally eat a mouse. It's not a number one thing. A badger might catch a fish. The two creatures are built differently. As carnivores, they're in the same bag. As to their basic MO, they're in a different one. Over here, we got this idea that says, once we break from the 1, 2, 3, Okay, I'm loud. I'll keep going. Once we break from the idea that humans have no virtue, we have the idea that the humans have some virtue. Once we hold that they have some virtue, we have to posit that they're standing next to each other in the same ecosystem, if you will. The badger is somewhere close to the stork. The stork is somewhere close to the badger. Neither one of them swims like a duck, but there you go. So you have an inherent worth of dignity of people. In other words, we're here. Next step. Since I don't want to be kicked and I don't want to be kicked, I don't want to be kicked and I don't want to kick, then we get our second one. And we build our way down through the line here. We realize that we're going to have to treat each other nicely, because if I can posit Walt, Walt can posit me. If we're both in the same, if we're both in the same place, then we need to figure out how we're going to teach each other. So we have and a lot of the times it's not a 90, it's not a really square differential, the thing counter thing. It's more like little more like favored teams in the NFL or something like that. And because of that, you wind up with a unity. We wind up in the same boat, in the same bag, trading that stuff back and forth. Literally, once we realize that there's more than one of us, we almost have to do the contradiction thing, because a Bushman doesn't live the same way that a stockbroker does. And so now once you figure that out, then you start working from there.
Thank you, Bill. Is there anyone else? Jonathan? Hello, Jonathan.
Well, I really appreciated the sermon. As someone who identifies as Christian, but yet if I met my teenage self, or heck, myself 4 years ago, I know outwardly my past self would smile and nod, but inwardly there would be a list of judgments and criticisms. You don't believe this anymore? You don't believe that? You've fallen off the path? I have had this conversation so many times with myself. I am tired of having it. So it's very comforting to hear someone else speak in this way of dualities. It was even my therapist who brought this method of thinking, not either or, but and both. I think one of the struggles coming to this place where I'm at now was not having a handrail, not having a metaphorical safety mechanism. If I have laws, if I have this is the way it has to be and anything out of there is wrong, then I know I'm safe. I have this mental guard post fence around me that if I go out of it, then I'm evil. And if I'm in it, I'm good to go. But if I put down those guardrails, these laws of what a Christian or person should and should not be, what do I have? How can I know where and when I'm safe? Well, that's kind of the trick. I don't. But what I got in place of that ultimate knowing, that safety, was a relationship with a higher power. I call that higher power God. Sometimes I call it Jesus. Sometimes I don't know what the heck to call it because it's so confusing. But sometimes, most times, I don't freaking care because I have a person, a thing, someone, something that I can talk to, something I can rely on, something I can converse with and grow with. And though it is uncomfortable at times, I wish I could go back to the old Christian me. I won't trade this relationship for anything in the world. Thank you.
Okay. Linda and Dave, are you on online for us?
Yes, we are.
Dave, stop. This is me. Thank you.
Hi, Linda.
First of all, I want to thank you for showing up in this ungodly heat and continuing to do these services. For the worship committee, thank you very much. In regards to the service, what it reminded me of is I have been a follower of the Course of Miracles for, probably 20 years. And in my spiritual path, the biggest growth that I think I have found is being able to welcome more than a duality in my path, my spiritual path, because while there are many, many differences in all of the multiple faiths and religion in our world, there are very, very many similarities too. With the basis, as Avery puts out, is that most faiths start with the concept of kindness or love. And whether you call this person Jesus, or you call him Muhammad, or you call him Buddha, the spiritual paths we follow are intended to help us find peace and quiet and calm with ourselves and others in the world. And so I think you can have not just dualities, but multiple perspectives and still find something to agree with, something that relates, something that has meaning for everybody. That's my input. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Karina, would you like to make a comment?
Would you like to say something? Because I will put you on it. Okay, that was what you wanted.
Karina?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I'm using the built-in mic. So I just wanted to comment on something at the beginning of the sermon where they discussed what children were kind of want to do in regards to God and such. Personally, even as a child, I was never attracted to the image of a Christian God or a higher power. I don't really buy that children are inherently attracted to that, but that they're trying to find meaning and they search within what they've been exposed to. But I've questioned people in my cohort, like, what are you thinking about staring at the ceiling in the tub at 7 years old? And it's usually not dissimilar to what I was thinking.
Thank you for that. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to make a comment about today's service? Sir? I'm sorry? Oh, we're talking about the service, the sermon that was given today. Oh, you just came in? Okay, so we start at 10 o'clock now and we go on till about 11. So today's service is almost over. Okay, well, we're happy you joined us. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome. Yeah, first of all, to respond a little bit to what Karina just mentioned, I also was not raised in a Christian household. And so I'm told that from my parents that apparently when I was like 5 or 6, one of my friends told me that there were angels that lived up in the sky in the clouds. And I told her that I'd been in a plane and I didn't see any angels. And that was the end of that. And so my experience was that children are not necessarily drawn to these Christian ideas unless they've been given them by their parents. But I also think that, and that's an important aspect to consider, because I think one thing that was left out in terms of favoring, I really like the discussion about favoring truth over consistency, because one important aspect of how we think and how we gain information about the world, they call it the Bayesian brain, that everything, even what you perceive, is a mixture of the information you're getting from your senses and what you expect to see. So, and that's why when you look at the clock, it'll appear to be frozen for maybe an extra second before the second hand ticks over. Or maybe you'll think that you see something out of the corner of your eye, because until you gain more information, until you focus your eyes on that, what you've initially perceived is a mixture not only of what you're actually seeing, but also what you expect to see. This is how a lot of optical illusions work, right? And so if you're expecting to see something, if you're expecting to find the gods out in nature or in the church, then you are more likely, at least at first, to see that truth.
Thank you, Alec. Okay, maybe we'll make this the last comment.
Thank you, Alec. And that just reminded me when I was young, before I started attending church, that what I was drawn towards were the fairies. And the fairies held a fascination for me. They made me feel really good. I would go out, and even if I couldn't see the fairies, I would go out and talk to the fairies and give wishes to the fairies. And that gave me a great deal of comfort and a great deal of happiness and a great deal of joy. So that I hadn't really thought about that until you were talking about the angels. and so you're right. There are a multitude of things, I think, that children may be drawn towards. It's that which gives them comfort, and it could be varied.
Thank you. Okay. So thank everyone for sharing your thoughts. And now we will adjourn to the parish hall for further fellowship. Thank you for being here.